America is a country that was founded for the purpose of allowing Christians to do their duty before God and not to have their consciences ruled by the doctrines and commandments of men. Reese Fund exists in order to see the 10 Commandments properly applied, not just as a plaque on the wall, but to actually be used in business as though they're commandments from God that we're supposed to obey. Our goal is to find businesses and to buy them and to build them up. We want to find manufacturing businesses and use them to make sure that we can maintain our capacity to do things here. Reese Fund, Christian capital, boldly deployed.
Let's do this
right now.
Let's do it. We decided a fast launch into the show.
Yeah.
We're just getting right into it.
I like it. I want to sit down and I just want to go.
Yeah. Well, I need a little warm up.
As soon as I get the little ear things in my ears, but I did it really fast today. This is probably the fastest I've ever done it.
Annie struggles with coordinating plugging things in her ears.
It's very hard for me. Yeah. So today was a really good day.
Well, hey y'all, welcome to the water break.
Yes.
I'm actually getting on interesting. You can now create polls inside YouTube. Interesting. All right, we're going live. I'm getting in the chats here. Just a second. You can take a second to go live here. If you guys want to be in a conversation with us, email us at RenchMedia@gmail.com. This is live. We're actually live in the studio on Thursday before our conference starts.
Literally 1 week.
1 week before.
I can't believe it.
When we get on the ground, everything will be okay.
It's not. Yeah, it's
Yes.
true. It's a rodeo of a week for Gabe.
Yeah. So a lot of details, a lot of planning, a lot of details, a lot of
putting out.
Who's going to park where, fires. We already printed the packets, and there's things we got to correct in the packet already, but that's okay. It's kind of how it's supposed to happen.
It's going to be fine.
Today, because we're actually traveling next week, we thought it'd be just kind of fun to.
It's really good timing.
Talk about health and travel, tips and health and travel, and all that stuff. And it's I used to travel 80,000 miles a year.
Yeah, a lot.
With MZ, my former company, and I got up to like whatever their gold status was just from traveling so much.
I know you bragged about it all the time.
I didn't like to be with the peons. I got to that point.
We would travel together, and he'd be like, "See that lounge? If you weren't here, I could go in there."
Yeah, no. Being in the 1%,
I was like,
it spoils you.
You're so mean to me. How about you stay out here and I go in there?
Being in the 1%, you just kind of look down on everybody.
Yeah, he was really quite a snob back then.
I'm like, that person doesn't even have MVP status.
Oh my gosh, travel coach like a peasant now. It's worth it to me though, because that was so much travel. I do not. Miss,
a lot of travel. Anyway,
I do not miss that.
Yeah, my segue was this. Actually, I got carried away joking about the elite status, travel status.
Such a snob.
And so I traveled 80,000 miles a year, and it really, the planes, the airports, the hotels, just everything about traveling is very difficult. And especially when you're working, you get up at 7 a.m. and immediately go to work, and then be out working because I was in sales and networking and all that stuff until 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah,
just
East Coast time.
That's
it
right.
Wasn't really that. It wasn't a vacation.
Yeah, that's right. And different time zones. I remember one trip in 1 week. I went to DC for 2 or 3 days. No. I went to Hawaii for a day too. Which is on 3-hour different time zone, and I came back to Idaho for just literally 12 hours or whatever, and had to fly out the next morning, or like 2 a.m. next morning. And then I went to DC.
And didn't we fall back somewhere?
And then it was a spring forward or fall back. I can't remember what it was.
What spring forward?
It ended up being like 7 hours of time zones. Including the spring forward, fall back, whatever.
Forward.
But whatever. I lost another hour. I remember losing.
Sprung forward because falling back.
It's. I lost another hour and all that.
He was a very sad boy.
It was pretty messed up.
Yeah, it was messed up.
Yeah, and I was trying to work, and especially DC is a lot of important meetings. It's so difficult. So, you're lacking sleep. You're lacking normality. You don't get the kind of consistent. You don't even eat at normal times.
Yeah.
And all that.
It can be rough if you're traveling that much.
Yeah, so it's pretty challenging. So we thought we're going to Fight Laugh Feast conference. Let's talk a little bit about health and travel and everything, so people can work on it.
Yeah. It's actually really funny. Gabe was the one who suggested this topic, because we were just like, what should we talk about this week? Especially because we're gonna miss next week because we're gonna be traveling.
Mm-hmm.
And you suggested this, and it's funny because this is probably over the many years that I've been doing what I do. This is definitely in the top 5 of the questions that I get all the time, or when people are talking about what their biggest struggles or roadblocks in terms of staying consistent or, you know, maintaining their health or continuing to improve their health, whatever, is travel.
Okay.
Sometimes that's combined with just the concept of summer vacation for moms when kids are home, you don't have the structure of school, probably those 2 things. It just comes up a lot, which I think is really interesting. And I don't really have a good gauge because like what you were just describing, traveling for business. I mean, there's a decent amount of men that travel a lot like that, but I would say that's not most people. You know, most people might just take a trip here and there, like kind of like we do now, right? Like it's not like all the time, but it is just interesting to me how much of a problem people at least see travel as it in terms of it just being so disruptive to them being able to stay on track, whatever that is. So I think it is great to talk about it. And it's on my mind because I'm trying to get our family ready to go to Texas next week. But before we want to give, I want to give some very practical tips for with regards to nutrition and exercise. But I want to talk about some big picture prereqs first.
Okay. And before that, I got some things before you get into that.
Do you want to talk now?
Yeah. Since we're going to Texas.
Oh, what guys? What is?
Don't forget that you need to go get some Texas tacos. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
And this is basically an example of what a Texas taco looks like. Yeah. You just huge.
Look at that.
It's a whole brisket and a taco.
But just the meat's huge. The little tortilla is not huge. So it's like a low carb
low carb option. Which it's all protein, mostly protein.
Yeah, we're going to tie that in. Actually, that's not bad. That actually looks really, I'm hungry.
That's funny.
It actually looks really good.
And then I keep a list of restaurants that I like in Texas and barbecue restaurants in Fort Worth and everything. And
so like actually in Fort Worth so people could go.
Yep. So I'm going to list off a couple that I think are pretty fun to check out.
One is very important.
One is this one's in Fresno, so it's a little ways away. It's probably about 50 minutes away, but in Fresno, it's Mexican Sugar. There might be one other location. I think there's 2 locations. There might be one other location.
You talked about that.
Mexican Sugar is some of the
for years.
It's kind of an upscale Mexican restaurant, and doggone.
Oh man, I wish we had time. I wish we had time to go there.
I got their surf and turf, a lobster tail, and I think it's carne asada, something like that. And it just. I mean, everything about Mexican Sugar. Maybe it was just like that, the right time. I was hungry, long day, whatever, kind of thing. But it was so good. The other, and this is actually more in the Fort Worth area. You have, Pecan Lodge,
Pecan
Lodge. You know, however you want to say it, Pecan Lodge.
You're going to hear from people. You're saying
I know
wrong.
They're like you're saying
they don't
wrong.
like it. They don't like it. The farther south you go, they get pretty.
I've had a number of. I actually haven't gone to that one, so on my list. I hope to actually do it while I'm in Fort Worth this week.
Like one of the earlier days.
Yep, one of the earlier days.
I'm gonna miss that.
Oh yeah. You probably will.
You can
because I get there on Tuesday. Annie gets there on Thursday. I haven't been to this one, but it's pretty highly rated. Goldie's Barbecue in Fort Worth. Cadillac Barbecue. That one's been recommended. That one's more in Dallas. Evie Mae's Pit Barbecue. That's in Fort Worth.
Wow.
Panther City Barbecue. I think I've been there. So yeah, no, I got a whole list. And honestly, one of my favorite. It's in Austin though. It's stinking in Austin. It's like this Asian fusion barbecue, and just incredible. It's called Loro, Loro, but that's in Austin. I'm sorry. Don't forget Angelo's. Angelo's in Fort Worth too, and Fred's in Fort Worth. Those are all
Angelo's and Fred. So you have a note in your phone, devoted just
to Texas restaurant barbecues,
restaurants specifically in the Fort Worth, Dallas area. Yeah, we have really different kinds of notes in our phones.
Yes,
that's really
so
nice that you shared that. You know, because I don't have that written down, but that's great.
Yeah.
Okay.
So back to you, baby. Where do we want to begin here?
I said I want to give some really practical, tangible things or tips or hacks or whatever you want to call them for nutrition and exercise whilst traveling. But I wanted to kind of frame it out first and say some big picture stuff first. The first one that I want to say, And I just want to be clear here. I know travel can mean a lot of different things for a lot of different people. So take everything that we say with a grain of salt. I'll say that what I'm, for the most part, picturing is like a regular family who just travels sometimes.
Yeah.
Maybe that's in the car. Maybe that's an airplane ride.
Yeah.
Maybe it's vacation. Maybe it's like business kind of.
Someone who didn't have gold status like I did back in the early days.
Peasants. I'm thinking of peasants who are trying to travel. Okay. That's what I'm thinking of. So that's kind of what I'm thinking of. You may not fall into that exact category, but hopefully at least some of the things we talk about will translate to everybody. Okay. But big picture, I think it's really important to note, since we're, going to be talking about nutrition, exercise, all those things with regards to travel, it really should be okay for most people, or at least it should be the goal for it to be okay to not exercise or have optimal nutrition necessarily for a couple days. Like, that needs to be okay. All right. It needs to be okay mentally. And so in that way, I'm talking to the people like the person I used to be, where I literally, and you remember it, like I really had a problem. Like
we would get to the hotel and, we'd travel, we'd go on a trip, we'd get the hotel, and either like that afternoon or the next morning, she's like in the gym.
I'm like, I gotta run.
Like, stop it.
It's crazy.
Stop it.
It's crazy. Yeah. And we're going to rabbit trail so hard all over the place on the show. I just know there's nothing wrong with exercising on vacation. If it's appropriate, if you have time, if you find that fun, if it works, there's nothing wrong with it. Okay. I mean, sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. But if you cannot be mentally and emotionally okay without it, like you are compelled. And I will say a lot of times, if that's you, and I know that's not necessarily everybody, there's probably more people in our crowd who maybe should exercise more than are not exercising enough. But I know there's a lot of you out there who are compulsive addicts to exercise. And that can be the case for a lot of different reasons. But if you're not okay mentally for like 3 days, I think, this is just my opinion, but I think that's a problem. I think you need to be okay not running, not lifting, not doing whatever kind of hardcore workout you normally might like to do. It needs to be all right. Like you got, and if it's not, you really need to ask yourself why, and you need to address those emotional, spiritual, mental, whatever it is.
Yeah.
You really do. And then secondly, and this was a lot of my problem also, it also needs to be okay, or it would be okay for you to not exercise for 3 days if you have a healthy body and a high-ish or a high enough metabolic rate, and decent enough nutrition habits that not exercising for a little bit of time isn't going to wreck you. Okay. And that's another thing to think about. Oh, no, there's nothing.
You keep going.
And that was one of my problems. And a lot of obsessive compulsive exercisers have this problem where they actually eat quite poorly. They eat a ton and they eat a lot of really bad food. A lot of us, and I was this way, a lot of the blood sugar regulation is really bad. So in other words, we have to spin 6 miles a day, run 6 miles a day in order to get away with the crappy food that we are accustomed to putting in our body. So it is ideal. It is a good goal to get your health to a place, to get your mental game to a place, to get your general nutrition habits to a place where it is not catastrophic for you to miss a week. Like it really isn't, like, or, at least 3 days. So I just wanted to say that. Okay.
And it also might just be like, if you just cannot not work out, if you are stuck with that
traveling
mindset,
or not. Yeah. You have a problem.
It's like you need to maybe have a little idolatrous view.
Totally.
Of working out.
You need to be okay not doing it. Yeah.
At minimum, some sort of obsessive,
yes, addictive personality,
or whatever.
You're managing, you're repressing something. There's something. So it's
like I could stop drinking coffee tomorrow.
Oh my gosh, I tried that one time. I don't want to talk about coffee because I'm a really bad
maybe you have some self-introspection there.
I cannot stop drinking coffee. I will feel so ill. But yeah, and it's not. And this isn't. I know this is a weird thing to say. So we're not saying don't exercise. It's usually a net positive for most people. But you should be able to travel for like a long weekend or whatever. And if exercise is not going to work out for you, it's okay. It's okay to do that. So and then here's another just big kind of overarching concept that I think it's going to sound really obvious and basic, but so many people don't seem to understand this. But just because you are on vacation or you're traveling or you're just not at home, basically, that does not mean you have to eat garbage. And
this is a hard one for me.
This is a hard one.
I'm traveling. I'm going to eat whatever I want.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's like, why? It's really funny. It's actually, especially right now in 2024, it is actually really easy to eat well or decently or something close to what you would eat at home, or at least foods that you think, okay, this is going to serve me and my health right now. It's actually not that hard. I've been doing it for years.
Yeah.
And obviously you get better at it with practice,
Yeah.
you know, but like so many people just default to McDonald's because it's there and the kids are hollering that they want it. And they're like, well, this is the only option. It's not like you can, you know, it just takes a little bit of creativity, a little bit of being disciplined, and maybe, you know, being willing to just think outside the box just a little bit. You can actually stay on track pretty dang easily. And we will give you, when we get to like just the practical tips, we'll give you some, you know, examples of how to do that. But just as a overarching theme, it's really not that hard. And I think a lot of people tell themselves that it's impossible when it's not.
Yeah.
So if you are someone who does want to stay on track or should stay on track, you can do it. It's very, very doable. And just because you're traveling is really not an excuse.
Right.
So I'll say that.
Yeah. You know, I mean, I traveled a lot, and I used to know all the airports and their food courts, and what, you know, Chick-fil-A in Minneapolis,
we'd
Gate
walk through,
C.
you'd be like, oh yeah, there's a Chick-fil-A
Gate
down
C there, you know, Salt Lake Barbecue is in Gate E and Fort Worth Airport. Dickies is in Gate D. You know, Chick-fil-A shakes are here, you know, all that stuff.
You're terrible. Yeah, terrible habits. I'm that way with Starbucks though.
Yeah, no.
I know where they all are. Yeah. Oh, funny. And then, you know, just a couple more thoughts and then we'll get into like the actual specifics. I think it also matters, some of these tips and how much you need to care about it when you travel. It's going to matter how often you travel, because if you're one of those people who's got a really good home routine and you're pretty solid and you're pretty consistent and you've got your thing going, and you travel like twice a year, it's not going to be as big of a deal if you stay on track or don't eat the pasta or, you know, get your lift, your run in or whatever. It's not going to be as big of a deal because you don't travel that often. But if you're someone like, I've got a client right now who I program for, and I don't even know what he does, but that guy travels all the time, internationally, here, there, everywhere. I mean, that guy, so with him, because he is gone all the time, he's the kind of guy who's like, okay, in Dallas, this is the gym I like to go to. Here, this is the gym I like to go to. And he'll get back to me and he'll be like, I'm only going to have dumbbells. What can you do for me this week? For him, it's worth it. He has to figure out his nutrition, and he has to figure out what gym he's going to go to and actually exercise while he travels, because he travels so much, right? So some of it is just that, like, how frequently do you travel? And then also, where are you at health-wise? That's a huge one, okay? If you are in like just maintenance, if you're healthy, your metabolic rate is good, your blood work looks good, you're not overweight, you're pretty happy with where your body's at, you can afford to be a little looser when you travel every once in a while. It's okay to go enjoy yourself. You know what I mean? To go enjoy the local cuisine or the barbecue that, you know, that town is famous for. I mean, like, we want to live our lives. And I think you're going to make, or you should be making, slightly different calculations if you're already healthy and just kind of in maintenance. Then if, let's say, you have 50 pounds to lose, you're pre-diabetic, you just got going on your journey, and you know that getting derailed for like this week of whatever vacation
put you back a month
could really set you back mentally, physically. You know, then you may need to care more. You may need to make a plan. You may need to make more of an effort. You might need to really try to stick with it, you know, stay on the wagon, because you're in a different situation. So I just wanted to say all those things. Those are my big picture things. And that said, let's talk about some practical stuff. Okay. And you should chime in whenever, because you have done a lot of traveling.
Yeah. No, let's go.
So let's talk nutrition first, because nutrition is something, I think it's going to be even more helpful than the exercise tips, because you can exercise or not when you're traveling. And like I just said, if it's a short trip, you don't have to. It's not that big of a deal. You might even benefit from not actually, and we'll get to that when we talk about exercise. But nutrition, you're going to eat. So it's just like, okay, what am I going to eat? How am I going to eat? Because everybody has to eat, right? You can't just skip that. So I'm going to just say some random things that I have found really helpful, and I've had clients find really helpful also. Number one, traveling is a really good time, in my opinion, if you're able to lean into kind of more of like a ketogenic, low carb, carnivore-ish type eating, and possibly even lean into some intermittent fasting if it's an okay idea for you. And I say that for a couple of reasons. As you guys
lean into intermittent
when
fasting?
I say lean into, I just mean you pull that tool out of your toolbox.
Okay.
Do it. And
if you can.
If you can. Exactly. I know not everybody can do that, not, you know, for a billion reasons, but you guys know, you know, I'm a very active female, so I am not a huge fan of extended ketogenic, whatever. I'm not a fan of me doing fasted training. I'm not a fan of a lot of those things, especially chronically long-term, but I do think they can be very helpful and they can be pulled out of your toolbox. And I think travel is a really good time. Number one, and I'll use myself as an example, and you guys can apply it as you want to. When I travel, I don't tend to be as active. I'm certainly not training as hard
as sitting down and playing for 6 hours, 4 hours, whatever.
Visiting family, doing a conference, you know, like on vacation in Mexico. Like I'm not training hard, or at least as hard as I normally would at home. So I'm not stressing my body, and I don't need arguably as many carbs as maybe I would think I would when I was at home training. Number two, and this is a really big one, I think it is so much easier to eat ketogenically on the road, at someone else's house, at family's house, at a restaurant, that, you know, basically somewhere where you are not the one making your own food. It is so much easier to eat that way than it is to try to find clean carbohydrates. And for me, and this might be getting a little granular here, but whatever, I like to eat either higher fat, higher protein, lower carb. That would be kind of like the more ketogenic approach, or like carnivore-ish approach. Or I like to bring my carbs up, and I like, when I do that, for my fat to come down. So I'm pretty particular about the kind of carbohydrates I want to eat. So that's going to be like a baked potato. That's going to be berries. I'm not talking about like French fried potatoes, stuff that's covered in butter, or, you know, straight out of it. It's just a lot harder to find good quality, clean carbs when you're not the one preparing them. But finding just like meat or eggs or a roasted, low starch vegetable, pretty dang easy, in my opinion. So almost always, unless I'm somewhere very specific, like when I was in Mexico by the equator, so much delicious fruit. I totally indulged in that. And that was great because I could do that on my terms. But normally, like when we go to this conference, I'm going to eat ketogenically pretty much the entire time because it's just easier to do.
To just basically do meat and protein bowls and stuff like that.
Exactly. Yeah. Meat, some dairy, eggs, low starch veggies if I can find them. And sometimes you can't find them. So it's a carnivore fest. And you know what? For 4 days, that's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
And I'm not training hard.
Yeah.
So it works. And the other thing that eating that way does really well is it really helps keep your blood sugar and your insulin very stable. Yeah. So you're not as hungry, which when you travel, and we'll kind of get into it, because you're not where you normally are, because a lot of different things. And more than anything, it's the poor sleep.
Yeah.
You're hungry. Yeah. You're more snackish, and you've experienced that, right?
Yeah.
And it's a proven thing.
I mean, you just got some, just kind of thinking about it, when you travel, you're up in the airplane, high altitude, it can affect your hydration levels.
Totally. It can whack all kinds of things.
It can whack all kinds of things. You wake up, like I'm waking up at 2 a.m. next Tuesday to fly out to Fort Worth, right?
Yeah.
So you wake up at 2 a.m. or whatever.
Oh, it's so early. Yeah.
2:30 in the morning, whatever it is. And so you wake up super early, and then you get on the plane, and you maybe work on one plane, and then the next layover, maybe you sleep on the next plane. That's usually what I do. I'll sleep, work, sleep, something like that. Try to catch up from that 2 a.m. Flight. And but the other thing it does, so I'm already a little messed up in terms of food.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
And my tummies can be a little sensitive when I'm traveling.
Yeah.
So I do want to eat like in the morning. What I like to do is I like to eat something with like tortilla or
like carbs.
Carbs in the morning. I really do.
Yeah.
It sets my tummy up better for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, I don't even want to drink coffee until I do something like that. On a normal morning, I can drink coffee without any food or anything. But I'm not waking up at 2 a.m. Just that whole kind of experience, plus the flight, plus the hydration. It makes me want to eat carb. And then usually at lunch or something like that, like a salad sounds good. Meat.
Everything settles.
Everything settles a little better, kind of thing. Yeah. I don't know if you have any thoughts kind of on that.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of different things. Electrolytes get messed up. You can be dehydrated on the plane. It depends on how long the flight is. Maybe you're driving, so you have more control. There's just so many things. But I think,
well, for us, it's always usually like at least a 2 to 4 hour flight.
I know, because we're in
Idaho.
Yeah, nothing is close.
Yeah. And rarely it's a 2 hour flight. Like we're doing.
Yeah.
It's 5 hours to get there because we're going to Seattle and then to Dallas.
Yeah, and it is proven. It is scientifically proven that when your sleep is poor, and it doesn't really matter why, but if your sleep is poor, waking up at 3 a.m., pulling really long nights at your conference, whatever.
Which we will. Yep.
Yeah. It really does affect your appetite the next day. Your blood sugar is whacked out. Your leptin it's lower. Like that's your satiety hormone. So your leptin regulation is off, and you legit you crave food, but more than anything, it's carbs, and usually not good ones. So it's good to be aware of that.
Does the craving maybe is still getting at some truth in the carb of wanting the carb, needing the carb?
Not necessarily, but I mean, your body naturally I think it's leptin more than anything, which is
what's leptin again?
It's your satiety hormone.
What's your satiety?
Satiety. Okay, so it's the hormone that your body is supposed to naturally release until you're full.
Oh, okay.
Right, and it works antithetically with ghrelin,
and so it's saying
which is a hunger
hormone. I need food.
Well, it's saying you don't need it anymore. So you want a decent level of leptin, but if you don't have as much, or you're desensitized to it, you're gonna just keep wanting to eat. And if you guys really think about that, you pay attention on the nights where you get really poor sleep. Maybe you're up with the baby 4 times, or you're just like, that was not a good night. The next day
you're hungry.
You are hungry. Yeah. You are more hungry. So you have to be aware of that when you travel. And eating high protein and a little more ketogenically is going to be, I mean, nothing's a panacea, but that eating in that way really does help keep that blood sugar and that insulin as stable as possible, which really does help. Now, if you're dealing with GI issues and you need to eat some carbs in order to not feel sick, you do what you got to do. Yeah. But I will also say, like a plane ride, for example, like a 3-hour plane ride, it is very, very beneficial to get metabolically flexible enough. Some of you might be, some of you might not be, to the point that you could comfortably fast on a plane ride, or maybe through a particular meal that you're just like, there's really nothing here that I really want to eat. And if you have that ability to pull that tool out of that tool belt and just skip it, that's awesome. Yeah. That's really, really helpful. So I do that, not all the time, but sometimes, and I also lean into MCTs quite a bit when I travel. And that's oil or powder. You can put it in your coffee. I love coffee, so it works great. And that also helps. It helps with mental clarity. It helps with energy, and it really helps keep your appetite at bay. And I wouldn't say I'm a big fan of eating, and you guys all know what I think. If you lean into something like that too much, you can actually eat so little, so regularly that your metabolic rate goes down. But here and there, like on a plane ride, when you're like, I would rather not be sitting here with my stomach grumbling, but I don't want to eat the goldfish. Yeah. MCTs are super helpful. So that's something that I always...
MCTs, I'm confused about this. They're like the cloud to you. I don't quite...
They're the cloud of ketosis. What are they?
Yeah.
They're just, okay, so they're a type of fat. They're a medium chain triglyceride.
Where does it come from?
Well, most of the ones that we inject, like the ones that I take, are derived from coconut. So
coconut.
Coconut.
That's what our daughter used to say.
I know. I was just thinking about that on the car today. That's so funny. So
they come from coconut, and it's just basically grounded fat into powder or something like that.
Basically, yeah. And let's not, keeping it really basic. Yeah. So medium chain triglycerides, and when you ingest them, and again, spoonful of oil, powder in your coffee, whatever. Those MCTs go to your liver. They are converted to ketones. And those ketones, remember, are just one of the other sources of fuel that can cross the blood-brain barrier, okay? So, and there's a lot of things. It probably stirs up GLP-1. There's a lot of different theories of why it gives some satiety. It actually helps you feel full, So a lot of people utilize those as kind of a hack when they're fasting.
Yeah.
And here again, I'm not even saying do a 24-hour fast. I'm just saying if it's a really nice little thing to lean into if you're on an airplane and there's just no food there and you're like, I ate before, I'll eat when I can eat on my own terms, food that I think will serve me a little bit more. So it's a pretty cool molecule. I think you can overuse them, but I think there's a time and place for them. So I just wanted to kind of add that in.
Okay.
So let's get back to, we were talking about basically, I led with, I really do lean into more ketogenic or carnivore type eating for all the reasons, you're not as hungry. It's easier to find that kind of food. It kind of cuts out a lot of the possible fried processed things that you might be tempted to eat because you're traveling. If you're like, well, I'm doing keto, I'm doing carnivore, you're just not going to have that stuff, which is great. The key though is no matter what kind of travel you're doing, you're driving, you're flying, whatever, is packing or finding good sources of protein. That's the key, right? And I think you actually have really improved in this area. You've started to realize that like when I eat a lot of junk food, I actually don't feel good. You're starting to realize, you can actually eat that burger without a bun and it's fine and you'll feel better, or you can make this bowl a protein bowl. Like I've seen you start to do that a little bit too. So really, you guys, it just takes changing your habits and not being that person that we talked about at the beginning who's like, oh, it's just McDonald's or nothing. There's no other options. Like there are. It's really not that hard. And restaurants and even eating at people's houses, it's most of the time, I mean, of course there's exceptions, but most of the time it's not that hard to eat that way if you want to. So
I will say when Trump worked at McDonald's this last week, I was like, I want to go to McDonald's and eat.
It was so funny. Did he really? When I saw that, I was like,
I mean, what they did
what's going on?
I mean, it was kind of a staged event, but it was,
clearly,
because they had to have Secret Service. All these cars went through drive-through, so they have Secret Service check out every car to make sure.
Check out every single car.
Yeah.
It was just
but it was hilarious.
Thing.
And Kamala lied a couple weeks ago saying she worked at McDonald's at one point. And so
why
Trump,
will she not stop lying? Like people can just check on these things.
I mean, liars lie. This is what they do.
But it's like, why? She knows that there's the internet and the interwebs, and that you can just go check.
It doesn't affect her because mainstream media doesn't call her out.
It's like she just says whatever she
wants. And so
wants.
Trump at one point said, I've worked at McDonald's now for 30 more minutes than Kamala ever has.
I didn't realize it was a dig at Kamala.
So good.
I'm so behind.
Yeah.
Anyways, okay. So you got to plan, pack, shop smart, order protein centric when you're eating out. This is actually pretty easy, and we're going to actually give some examples here, but we're talking meat, eggs, some dairy if you can tolerate it, maybe a low starch veggie. So I'm just going to give you some examples. Let's see here. You can order 2 burgers and just say without the bun. I always do that because I'm a big meat eater. And then just get the veggies. So do the lettuce, do the tomato, do the onions, and do mustard. Mustard is usually pretty clean, free of seed oils. And that's going to fill you right up. If you really are feeling fancy, put some bacon on there, okay? You don't have to eat the processed bun if you don't want to. It's really not that hard. You can have them scramble or fry you eggs. And note that you can eat eggs at lunchtime. You can eat eggs any old time of the day, and they're delicious, and they're
No, you can only have eggs for breakfast.
Gabe, principally has never agreed with the concept of like breakfast for dinner.
No.
He does not like it.
No.
He does not believe in it. I do it for the kids when he's gone. They celebrate when you leave, and they're like, let's have pancakes for dinner.
Yeah, and I'm like, why are we doing this?
It's like, he's against it. But okay, guys, Gabe won't do it, but you could. Okay, I do eggs for lunch all the time. And a lot of restaurants will happily scramble you eggs and just be like, throw some cheese on it, put some meat in it, give me some salsa. It's very good. It's very filling. So again, just think outside the box a little bit.
Yeah.
The breakfast box. You can eat it for lunch, any kind of grilled meat, steak, fish, chicken, just grilled. Travel with hot sauce maybe, and then a grilled veggie, perfectly good. Perfectly good. You can get this most places. I've said this many times on the show, but if you do have to do a salad, have them double the protein. And then
always double.
Yeah, because they give you like 3 ounces of whatever. It's just so sad. So double it, maybe triple it if they're really bad. And then you just don't get their dressing because it's going to be full of bad oils for you, and just have them do olive oil and vinegar and a little salt and pepper. It really is pretty delicious. And even if you're going places like Subway or Chipotle, you can create basically a protein bowl. It's not very hard. We do that at Subway or Chipotle or Qdoba all the time. Just you literally say, these are the things that I want on there. It's really not that hard. So, it's just really, it's not that hard. A couple other little tips here on the nutritional side of things. I'm going out of order, so I'm just making sure. Yeah. So you remember that you can carry your own food. Obviously, I think a lot of us know we can pack food in the car, but a lot of us don't think to pack food on an airplane, but you absolutely can. And I totally do that. And my kids are totally used to it. Like, Mom, I want, can I have an apple, or can I have a meat stick, or can I have and like, they're just used to it. So just takes a little more packing, bring it through TSH, just bring it on there.
And I'll just say with kids and snacks, it almost, sometimes it does have to do with the need for food and like energy, like
but sometimes,
but most of the time, it's like I just need something to chew on.
I'm bored.
I'm bored.
And when we travel, I always get Swedish fish or whatever it is. So
the whole snack thing for kids.
Yes.
They do need to eat more food than us, because they're growing, their bodies are growing, that kind of thing. But
it's
like,
okay to make a trip fun, because sometimes it's really boring. 100%. So it's nice to have something to look forward to. But they don't necessarily need to be eating garbage.
They're not dying.
No.
Because they ate at 9 a.m. and then they need to eat at 10:30 and then lunch is at 12. It's like, that's not happening.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. And kids, they love to do that when we're traveling. Okay, speaking of notes in our phones, I do not have Texas restaurants in my phone, but I do have notes. I literally have like a folder. Yes, a folder that's like travel. And then I have like packing lists, shopping lists, snack lists, because it's just helpful when you're busy.
Yeah.
So if this is all foreign to you and you're like, oh my gosh, I've never done that. We just eat at McDonald's and we eat fast food the entire time. And that's what we do. Start making lists. It really helps, because sometimes you have more brain power than others. And, if you're packing for one trip, make a bunch of notes so that you can look back on it the next time. It's super helpful. I still do that. You can stop by more than one restaurant while you're driving. I know that sounds like, are you serious? Like, yeah, you can. Like, not, if you're on a health journey and it is not going to serve you to eat at Wendy's, don't eat at Wendy's. Just go to the Subway that's like right down the road. Like, it's not, again, that hard. You can also go to a grocery store. You don't have to hit up a fast food chain. You can literally walk into a grocery store. You can get some Greek yogurt. You can get some berries. You can get a rotisserie chicken. There's a lot of things that you can actually get to make lunch or dinner for you, for your family, out of a grocery store. It just might take a little more effort, but again, not that hard. And kind of speaking to what you just said about kids, doing this while you travel, like one of the number one things that's going to dictate the way you guys continue to eat while you're traveling and the kinds of choices you make is really going to just come down to what kind of taste buds and habits have you already formed back home, right? If you have kids who are addicted to ultra processed and fast food, you better bet that's all they're going to want when you travel.
Right.
And it's just going to get harder because you're not at home, you're not in your element, you're not doing your regular schedule. If you and your husband, that's already, your kryptonite and what you let yourselves have several times a week, even though you know you shouldn't and you're not healthy and it's not good. Why in the world would you do better on the road?
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean? Like
all of a sudden change habits.
Exactly. So if you've been eating clean for a long time, which is what we suggest that you do at least most of the time, it really should feel very normal and just kind of an assumption almost that you continue to do that while you're traveling. And, again, we give a bunch of examples of how you can order, how you can do that. Someone
just said, oh yeah, I need to get them some MTC. This is Corey. I'm going to get some MTC tonight. You forgot about it.
MCTs.
MCTs. Oops.
Medium chain triglyceride.
I did it backwards.
That's okay. Get it, Corey. Get them.
And I said, Annie has MCT in every room in our house. Just kidding.
I do have it at my house, and I have a little travel one. When I travel, I keep a little tub and a little travel frother, which you can totally get off of Amazon. Because it folds up.
And then my kids now use the frother in their coffee.
No, but that's my at-home frother. My travel frother folds up. I take it. And then everybody at the Starbucks, it's a great conversation. Because they see me pouring this white powder in and frothing it because I'm like, this is what I'm going to have. I'm going to do a 3-hour flight.
Because you got to mix the powder. You really got to froth it to mix the powder, right?
People will come and ask me, and I'll be like, it's cocaine. Like I'll always say something, and it's very fun. So there's a lot of reasons to do MCTs, but I do travel with them. I travel with those,
it's Annie's snooty frother.
I'm like, I usually make a line and just snort it, but it's just faster, just froth it in.
And people think we sit in first class and like we're in the back of the plane.
We're not first class. We're not that classy. Oh my gosh. Okay. Another thought I wanted to say, and I know we need to touch on exercise. I don't know. What time is it? I guess we're doing fine.
We're doing fine.
As soon as this, and I will use this conference that we're going to. And this conference is actually a really good example of maybe a harder situation because we're sort of going to be at
you're kind of on your own island,
like you're at a big conference center and then like food is catered and you really have
your choices are limited.
I could have got really Carney and been like, Gabe, who's ordering what, but I didn't.
We have a waffle truck pulling up.
We have a waffle truck.
Sells savory waffles.
Oh man.
Or sweet waffles.
That's yum.
I know. So like chicken waffle sandwiches.
Yeah. So this is a situation that we are walking into. And so the whole point of me saying this is one of the first things that I'm going to do when I get there is I'm going to take one of our cars and I'm going to go to a grocery store and I'm going to get myself and my family a few things that I think are a good idea, depending on kind of like what's available. It's okay to do that. And again, that just takes a little more forethought, a little more planning. But while I don't mind us, like we talked about at the start, letting loose a little bit, have the waffle. We're in Fort Worth. It's fun. We don't normally eat like this, and it's fun to enjoy that kind of thing. And I'm certainly going to let my kids do that. It's fine. But I'm also going to buy some fruit. I'm going to buy some things that I actually think will help us feel good and not feel like garbage all the time. And the kinds of things that I'll probably get. I'll get you some spindrifts because I know you like those. Sorry, Waterloo.
Yeah, Waterloo.
Snob. Guys,
Spindrift's not that good.
He acts like he's not picky, but he's the worst.
I'm not picky.
I will get him the Waterloos. Anyways, you can go to the store, okay? Yeah. You can pull up to wherever you're vacationing, the hotel. Even if you're staying at somebody's house, it's really okay. Like you can just say, hey, do you mind if I throw a couple things in your fridge? They'll be like, sure, totally fine. Like people just want other people to be happy for the most part, unless you are having, I don't know, some real big family drama. But go to the store, get what you need, and bring it back with you, okay? You can do that. I think I already talked about fasting. I already talked about how you get so snackish, and that's when I use the MCTs. I think that's most of the things I wanted to talk about with regards to nutrition. You have anything else you want to add in there?
I couldn't follow your notes.
The phone notes. Well, it's because I went out. It's because I went out.
Oh, you added.
Well, I added a little, and I went out of order.
Oh, yeah, that's true. That's true.
He doesn't like it when I do that.
Yeah. Well, I don't have much to add. I mean, for me, traveling has always been very difficult. And largely most of my travel, besides a trip a year or so, or every other year with you guys is a vacation trip.
Right.
Most of my travel is just all work. And when it's all work, you don't waste any time traveling. You don't waste any days on the ground. You know,
Yeah,
everything's usually
it's just
scheduled
work.
out. It's
Yep,
just
it's just work. Yep.
meeting. So it's
Yep.
very different. Now the conference, the conference for me is, this one's a little awkward for me too, because I want to enjoy it, but I also am the planning person, the one in charge of everything and all the mistakes that happen and all the repairs that need to happen, you know, whatever.
Gabe,
So
I'm there and I bring you things.
yeah, and no, my wife's super helpful on these
That's
conferences to me.
very nice for him.
Yes, very helpful.
Normally I'm not there, but in this case I'm there and I will bring you mostly nutritious food.
Yes. So but you know, but to your point is like it's just a highly timed out thing, and I don't have time to kind of get off campus. I don't have time to, you know, to go to the store. That's why you're such a blessing and all that. And but normally I don't even have you in road trips.
Yeah, I'm not I'm not normal.
That.
Well, yeah, and in a case like that, when it's a zero-sum game, you don't, and you're on your own, maybe you don't have time. You really are like in the conference center and you're kind of beholden to whatever is served to you. You still just do your best. You know, you throw the bun away, or you ask for extra tacos, you just dump it out. Like it's really there's a lot you can do. You could literally just say, hey, can I double the meat on this thing? Or is it okay if or do you mind frying me a couple eggs? Like really, I've found I order like that all the time. Like all the time.
She does.
I'm not rude about it, but I'm like very not embarrassed to ask for a lot of different things. And I have never one time had somebody get annoyed at me, or at least not that they showed in their face. Maybe they went back to the kitchen. They were like,
a good waitress would never do that.
I hate her. Yeah. But like people, you can double the protein. You can ask, hey, do you have eggs? Do you mind frying me one? They'll make up a price for you. Can I double the sandwich? You know, it's not, do you have oil and vinegar instead of the dressing?
Yeah.
There's a lot of agency you have, even in a situation like that. I mean, and what is that phrase? Where you don't want good to be the enemy of perfect. Is that the right way? Did I say that right? Where you're so obsessed with it just being perfect that you forget that you could do just pretty good. And usually you could at minimum do good. You just have to care a little and you just have to try. That's all.
And I just, you know, we always push back. I was like, you know, pushing back on the idea of don't be a food Pharisee.
Yes.
In all this.
Yes.
And you know, for me, I've tried to find, I've worked hard because, you know, I mean, I love a good burger. I love a good taco. I love a good carb, right? You know, so I've tried to find protein meals that like I'm cool with, that I'm happy on the road, that I really genuinely like.
Yeah. We all have to do that.
God designed us to enjoy our food. Like he really did. You know, one of our elders, Francis Fukushon, makes a great point. Like God, one of the distinctive things of what it means to be human is that you enjoy food and variety of food. Yeah. God made horses and they get grass. You know, animals get grass. You know, it's like the food palette of an animal is, you know,
is
narrow and monotone, whatever. But humans get variety, and that's part of what it means to be human. Is and God prepares the table in the presence of our enemies. Like God really is very intentional about our food. So, but with the way America has destroyed a lot of our food through big big corp, big food, and big FDA and big pharma and big chemicals, all the, you know, all the stuff that's gone on to it.
It kind of confuses.
So we're in a different, we're in a different world where, I mean, I was just watching who was it? JD Vance and Theo, the comedian Theo. Have you seen that show? Theo. Theo's kind of like a little bit like this redneck comedian show kind of guy.
Okay.
I don't think he's a Christian, but I think he's kind of been red pilled too at the same time. You know, kind of one of those attorneys. He interviewed JD Vance, and JD Vance was just acknowledging all this. He's like, it's kind of crazy how we've created, you know, we're one of the most richest countries in the nation, and yet we've kind of tainted a lot of our food through our big process. But it's all big pharma, big farms, big cereal, and what's happened is I think it's actually regulations that have come in and mixed with all this, and then perverse incentives that have mixed with all our big food. So all that to say is, you know, you know, I think it's right that we need to make some course correction on how we think about the food that comes over the shelf to us, because you know, like we're in the history of the world. Where do we get all these various forms of diabetes that no one has ever experienced in the rest of civilization? How do we get all these forms of cancer? I know cancer's been around for a long time, but like we have more cancer than ever. How do we get, you know,
what's
heart issues, diabetes? I mean, like diabetes is like, I don't think there was ever a, you know, case of diabetes before the 1800s or something. I don't know.
It was rare.
It was rare. Whatever it was.
More rare. Yeah. No, it's true. You have to grapple with all those things. And I you know, but just also, I guess there's two different ways to look at travel. And it probably depends on, like we talked about at the beginning, how often you travel, what your current state of health is.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because like we've said, it's kind of been a regular theme in this podcast that like we love the idea of feasting.
Yeah.
But if you are in a state of extreme unhealth, you're probably not going to be able to feast as frequently.
Right.
Until you get your body into a better place.
Right.
You know, so
100%.
some of it is just you, but you could look at travel, especially if you don't travel that often. I totally agree with you that one of the unique things about humans is that we are able to enjoy a very diverse amount of different types of foods. And actually, physiologically speaking, that is arguably the healthiest kind of diet, is a very diverse one. Diverse in terms of real whole food mostly. You want that.
Yeah.
Most gut experts will tell you that. They're like, you need to be eating all kinds of different kinds of fruits and phenols and fibers.
And it's obviously, that's what God wants.
That's what God wants. Exactly. That's how we thrive. That's what feeds our microbiome. You know, you don't want to get to like, I can only eat these foods. You don't want to get that way, but it's a lot easier from a health standpoint to eat diversely at home when you can control, you know, your intake. So maybe when you travel, if you're really trying to improve your health, you can narrow it up a little bit, and you can get more diverse at home. But if you're in a place of great health and you want to, you know, enjoy the local cuisine, do it. You could look at it either way. We're gonna wrap up before we talk about exercise.
Well, no, we still got to talk about the category exercise. I thought, we're gonna finish exercise.
So
we got
awkward.
15 minutes.
He played.
I thought
music.
you were done when you asked me.
No,
you got anything else to
we
say?
Have time.
Oh.
This is like when you say goodbye to someone and then you see him again.
But wait, there's more.
And you're like, should I say goodbye again? It's really awkward. We did that to you guys. I'm sorry.
Okay, so exercise. That's right. We haven't even touched this.
We haven't, and there isn't going to be that much to say.
Okay.
But
what was that?
I don't know.
Something fell.
That wasn't you. That was inside of it. Okay, so we already said at the start that, and this is just my opinion, you guys, and I'm just putting numbers on it, for example. Okay, but like if you're gonna go travel somewhere for like 3 days, it needs to be okay for you to not exercise. And if you're somebody who's a pretty hardcore regular exerciser and you stress your body out and you beat your body up up a lot on the regular, like I do, 3 days off sometimes is the best thing that could happen to you.
Right.
Like really, like it really can be so good just for rest and recovery. So I've learned as I've gotten older to look at shorter trips as like, especially when it just doesn't seem like it's going to be a good fit for me to go do something exercisey. I just embrace it. And I'm just like, yes, this is going to be so good. I'm going to get as much sun as I can. I'm going to get as much good family time as I can. I'm going to just give all the like rest and relax cues to my body. I'm going to eat a lot because your body, I mean, exercise is not the only health input, right? I mean, you can actually do a lot of damage over exercising. And you know, doing that chronically over time. So embrace rest and change and vacation. That's wonderful. My general rule of thumb is if I'm going to be somewhere for like a weekish or longer, which is rare, right? I don't think the long. I mean, like
maybe vacation 2 years ago or something.
Yeah. Then I go try to find a gym if it's possible. And if it's not, then I'm going to lean into body weight work, which is perfectly acceptable. And again, sometimes just a fun change to just do a bunch of higher rep body weight stuff because I don't normally do a lot of that. I usually do a lot of heavy, low rep stuff. Or trigger sessions, which we've talked about, where you're in your hotel room, max set of push-ups, move on with your day. You come back at lunch, max set of push-ups, you know, you're by the pool, do some squats, you know, like that works too. And anything's better than nothing. And it just completely depends on the situation. I also want to say that walking, a lot of times trips, you know, if you go to Disneyland or you go to New York City or you go to Europe, you just walk all day. And that's awesome. You know what I mean? Like you don't like that. Don't underestimate how great that is. And that I have clients and people I talk to go to Europe frequently, and they literally eat their way through France and Italy, and they're eating all the local cuisine, and they're just loving it. And they just walk all day, and they come back lighter than when they left. You know what I mean? Like you really can get away with a lot when you're on your feet in the sun, having a great time, you know, and you're moving a lot. So also embrace the walking, you know, and our bodies do really well. And maybe, I don't know, some of you might live in a big city and walk a lot anyways. You know, we live in a small town. So unless you know, on purpose go for a walk or a hike, you really don't do that. So a change is great. Our bodies respond very well to it. So again, lean into the rest, lean into the lowering of the cortisol, lean into getting as much sun as you can. Just walk, have the break, give your joints a break, give your brain a break. It's perfectly fine. But if you're going to be there for a decent amount of time. You can find a gym. I have found that CrossFit gyms it depends on how you lift, but if you're like me and you want a barbell and a rack and no one telling you what to do, usually a CrossFit type gym is going to be your best bet. You just have to find one that has like open gym. And usually you pay for it, which again is why I just don't bother unless, I'm going to be there for a good week, to the point where I'm like, okay, if it's going to be so much time off that when I get back, I'm going to get so sore, then I'll start prioritizing it, if I can. And then if you can't get to a gym, or it's just not, you can't find a good one, or it's just not feasible, you guys, body weight, man. Where were we? Was it Stanley? No, where did we go? It was on our side of the family. I can't remember where we went. But we were
Oregon?
we were like in like close to Bend, Sun Valley. Is that what it's called? Whatever. It was kind of very remote, and it was like just this big house and like cabins. There's no gym. And a bunch of us did a body weight workout that is like seared in my mind because of how hard it was. And I'm just going to give you guys this example because it's like, I think a lot of people are like, body weight, it's stupid and might as well not do anything. Not true. We were at pretty high elevation. And I think that's part of why
it was
this
harder.
hurt me so bad, but it was literally, I think 6 rounds. It was like 21 air squats, 21 push-ups, 21 lunge steps, and then a run. And we just kind of figured out a loop that we thought was about 400 meters. And like, God, it was so hard. And that's a lot, at least for me, that's a lot of push-ups, 6 rounds of that. I was really sore the next day. And I remember that. That was several years ago. And I just remember being like, that is a good reminder that you can still wreck yourself just doing body weight. Like you really can, if you want to, and you can do, you can get tired really quickly if you need to. So, I mean, that's pretty much it. The older I get, the more, I will say, the more and more, because I exercise so regularly, so this may not be the case for everybody, I lean towards not exercising when I travel more and more and more. Like I really do. And whenever I do this conference, it's so funny. I'll be gone for like 3, sometimes 4 days, depending. And it's usually East Coast time. So 2 or 3 hours earlier. So waking up is already harder, right? You're waking up at a time that feels like 4 a.m. to you, you know? Every year until like last year, because how many conferences have we done? 5?
I think 6.
Okay. Every time I have brought workout clothes, every single time. And I'm like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to get up and I'm going to do a workout and I'm just going to start my day right. Never happens.
Not on these
You're
trips.
so exhausted. You walk around, you're talking to people. It's late nights. It's just not the kind of trip that Annie should be trying to work out on. It's just not. And I finally wrote in my notes in all caps under my, because I said I have all these travel lists. I have one for FLF conference because there's all these unique things that I like to remember for you, for us, whatever. All caps. Do not bring
workout clothes.
Your workout clothes. You will not work out.
That's funny, baby.
So this year I'm just going to be wiser and I'm going to adjust and I'm not going to bring my workout clothes, guys. So if you see me and you're wondering, no, I am not using that hotel gym. I can't. I would rather sleep, and you got to sleep, man. When you throw a conference, it's exhausting.
The nice thing is, so we usually leave pretty early Sunday morning to get home because we've been gone for 4 days.
Yeah,
and all.
It's time to get back. Yeah.
And so we're usually out of there pretty early, but it's fall back a Saturday night.
So
we actually gain it.
So
even if we wake up early, it'll be,
That is really, really great news. Yeah. It does mean it will be dark at 4 here though.
Yeah. That's right.
We're gonna come home to the beginning of the dark winter
in northern Idaho.
Oh man, guys, pray for us.
All right.
Is
that it, baby?
Cue the music.
Cue the music.
We're actually done. Yeah. Hope that was helpful, you guys.
Yeah, and if some of you guys tune in listening to us and wondering what do you mean Prodigal America, well, you can go to prodigalamerica.com and sign up to come to our conference. You'll actually be able to join us in Fort Worth next week. It's next week. And the Thursday night event is actually free to the public. There will be food and beverage for sale, but it starts at 5:30. Come sing psalms and hang out and eat and fellowship with us.
Yeah, it's pretty
Thursday
cool.
night. And then the rest of the conference, there's a pre-business conference on Thursday afternoon. And then Friday, Saturday is just a party. It's a great conference. So hope to see you guys in Fort Worth. If you're traveling there with us, we'll be in the airports on Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday. And my staff will be coming in.
You might see us.
Yeah. So
with my frother.
That means we're with your frother.
I love that thing.
If we're going to be off next week. So no water break next week. And then the following weeks we'll be back on for November, and that's when basketball season starts for me, and I'll be coaching, and so probably have a lot more stories to talk about.
Oh geez. Yes, can't wait.
So thank you for joining Water Break, and we'll see you back here in 2 weeks. Actually, 2 weeks.
See you soon, guys.
I don't really like working.
I only work remotely.
I'm gonna need 8 weeks of paid vacation, maybe 12.
I take a lot of breaks. I feel more mentally healthy.
I'm gonna need a priority parking space.
Do you have non-dairy options in your coffee bar? Do you have soy? Do you have a decaf, half-calf kind of thing? Interviews are so boring.
How's your game?
Do I need to call my dad? You work for him, you know.
You guys are so intense. Like, do you always work this hard?
You don't run a daycare, you run a business. That's why you need redballoon.work.
I think you need me more than I need